Hello, Nathan.
Hey, how you doing?
Great to see you today. Thank you so much for joining me on Michelle's Conversations That Matter. We're thrilled that you're here today.
Thank you for having me. It's really appreciated.
Of course. So Michelle's Conversations That Matter is really, I created this to cause more open dialogue about mental health and beyond. I wanted to be more of the change and cause those discussions that maybe make people a little uncomfortable. But ultimately, I was focused on inspiring and educating people so that mental health isn't like the thing that we all, don't want to talk about. I really want there to be open dialogue. So that's a little bit about the series. What I'm doing in my day job is I work with companies similar to you, and I help shift cultures and really empower employees with resilience programs and assessing their workplace to see what they can do to amplify what they're already doing for inclusion of people with invisible disabilities. So that's what I do every day. So I'm thrilled that you're here today, all the way from the UK, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
Indeed, from Hastings, UK.
Wonderful. Could you take a moment just to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, and why does this work matter to you, the work that you do?
And I love that last bit. So who am I? My name's Nathan Simmonds. I am a senior leadership coach and trainer. I'm working one-to-one with leadership at all levels, middle management and upwards, but also delivering content into FTSE 250 organisations. So I've been in leadership roles and management roles since I was 19. I'm now 42, so 23 plus years doing this sort of stuff. But I've spent the last 9 years really focusing on leadership development, personal development, and the key components that actually make leadership work. Because a lot of the places that I've worked in, the leadership system simply hasn't worked. There's been something fundamentally wrong. I haven't felt like I fitted into the process, or I haven't felt like I was included. I always felt like I was an outsider. But I think this is something that's been in my psyche and in my thinking for a very, very long time. So that's kind of where I'm at and what I've been doing. But that why, there's been some challenges. And I think it's, as the cliche saying goes, your life story becomes someone else's survival guide.
Right.
And there have been events that have happened in my life for varying reasons, and they've all happened for a reason. And in reflection, you only ever get to see the reason a lot of the time rather than in the moment.
Right.
And a lot of stuff. The first thing was I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 9 years old. So it was a long time ago, and was hospitalised for almost a year as a child. I bounced back from that fairly well, got to school. And around about 12 or 13, I was severely bullied by a group of boys from another school, which went on for kind of 6 to 8 months, felt like a lifetime. But that pain and trauma that I felt inside that situation, I didn't process. So instead of actually dealing with it and talking to the right people, or what would have been the right people at the time, I became the bully. So I started measuring out that pain that I'd received onto other people. So in order to not be in the pecking order, I made sure that I was at the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, as that rolled out later on in life, and I've done some phenomenal stuff in my life as well. It's not all these low moments. What I found at 36 was I was still bullying people inside the workplace. I was still using the same tactics and the same behaviours, but I was putting that onto other people in order for them to improve their results and their outcomes. So in actual fact, what had happened, or part of what had happened, was that childhood trauma that I hadn't processed was just being played out in my work life and through my leadership. And I was then putting that onto other people and actually damaging some of their mental health, because I hadn't actually healed my own mental health. And that's one of the key elements in there as well. There's a few other things there, but it's important because as I'm looking at leadership, as myself as a leader, and as I'm looking at other leaders, I'm now starting to really understand, with this intensity of proximity that we've had with COVID-19 to ourselves and those people closest to us.
Right.
I'm starting to see some of these behaviours playing out in different ways. I'm starting to see the child in people, the stuff that hasn't been processed, the way that they were treated when they got their first job, or the way their manager spoke to them, or the way that their parents spoke to them. I'm starting to see more of this playing out in a work dynamic. And I'm starting to see how people are actually then inflicting and kind of affecting those people around them through this unprocessed pains and traumas that they've experienced in their lives.
That's amazing. I I loved our conversation we had before when I was getting to know you and the work that you're doing. And, one of the things that you said to me was that you believe that leaders need to have the right kinds of conversations now to support their people. Now if you look at the numbers, a lot of people are dealing with anxiety or depression, and they're working from home and they're navigating being a parent and also, trying to do their jobs. So talk to us about, tell us more about what do you mean when you say having the right conversation? What does that look like and why is that so important?
The first part is actually having the conversation. I think most leaders, 98%, let's throw a number out there. That's probably kind of an educated assumption of 98% of leaders don't actually want to have the conversation because they don't believe they're actually trained to have the conversation.
Yeah, they don't believe that they're trained.
Yes.
And they think they're sliding over into the role of the psychiatrist.
Yes, correct. So they either feel like they're the psychiatrist or they don't feel equipped to do it because they haven't had the training that says they can do it. And they're scared that they might say the wrong thing to the individual. And actually, it's not about saying the wrong thing. It's about your intention when you're going into it. And actually how you signpost that intention going into it. The reason I'm in this conversation is because, let's be frank, I give a shit. I care. I'm here. I'm your leader, and I'm here to support you and clear the blockages so that you can be the fullest version of yourself at the optimal level. And if that involves me asking some questions about mental health, then I'm here to have that conversation so I can give you the support as a leader, not to carry your bags. Well, I'm not here to carry the bags.
Right.
I'm here to ask you the questions, help you see where the possible resources are, who your network is, and help you design an action plan for yourself and support you as you go through that for yourself. Because I may not be your leader next year. I may get promoted. You may change job, whatever it is. But I'm here to give you some skill sets through my own wherewithal about myself and about the situation. And signpost, show that person you care, that you're there to support them. And then start asking some of those coaching questions and start just getting them to kind of talk about it. And they may not be used to that. And you may not be used to that. And it's being honest, being vulnerable. And do you know what? I feel awkward about this conversation because I'm not used to it.
Exactly.
But I still want to help.
Exactly. I remember, there are certain bosses, because I've had conversations with people. You learn tremendously from the great bosses and you learn tremendously from the horrible bosses, right?
Absolutely.
You can't help but learn what it looks like to do some really bad stuff and mentally make a note that I will never be that leader, right?
Yes.
But then there are the other bosses that you just described when you said that you give a crap. You just described a manager that I remember so dearly because he would always just check in with me. How are you doing? How are you liking the work? How are you feeling? How is your workload? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Do you need support? Like, I know that it might be, it might not be the norm, but man, did that really motivate me and help me feel engaged and help me feel connected. There's this saying here, I have a quote, you need to heal yourself or you'll bleed on others. Mm-hmm. When we talked a few weeks ago, we talked about the importance of self-awareness in people leaders. And I think that the reason why that manager resonated with me is because I truly believe that he was acutely self-aware of his own self. So he was able to extend himself. So can you talk to us about self-awareness and how important you feel that is for the organization in terms of having leaders who have healed and are poised to be good leaders?
And so this, I think, was a phrase, is something that popped into my head recently, is about the wounded leader. And it is about understanding trauma and pain and the situations we've gone through, whether it's this year, last year, 30 years ago, it doesn't matter. The key thing about this self-awareness is that you as a human being have experienced a certain level of trauma. And trauma is a perceived negative event that is encoded in you as a physiological and psychological way. And what happens is we have these events that happen in our lives, but we don't process them, because then what we do as human beings, we compare them to somebody else's. So I was bullied at school. I never processed my trauma because lots of people at school were bullied, and I didn't want to tell my dad in case I was emasculated and, I was seen less of a man.
Yeah.
And then recently I was talking to a guy that was sex trafficked by his older brother. It was a couple of years ago I met this guy. So then you look at bullying and sex trafficking, and well, my trauma is not as bad as your trauma, so I won't talk about it. So you play it down and you don't process it. But my trauma to me is still a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
His trauma to him is still a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's not in relation to other, it is relative to you.
Yeah.
And all these little events that happen through our lives is we don't process them and we just hold on to them. And then what happens is we create these patterns, these psychologically safety mechanisms in our head. They're kind of like records in a jukebox. Oh, when this situation happens, I press J4 and the little record comes down and I play that record because that keeps me safe in my environment.
Yeah.
But actually, that served you when you were 7 years old, not when you were 47 years old.
Yeah.
But we still keep playing the same record. So basically what we're doing is we're fully grown adults trying to put on age 6 to 7 training, diapers or whatever it is. Yeah. But we haven't realized that we need to shift it.
Yeah.
So this self-awareness is, okay, things have happened to me. People have said things to me. I've been hurt, and that's okay. And it's about going back and processing them, even the small things. I'll give you a super strange example, but it's relevant. My grandmother-in-law, my grandparents on my wife's side had passed away. She turned up to meet her husband, Jim, phenomenal couple. He's coming back on the train, I think, from service in World War II. She's got this, it's 1940 something. She's got this amazing yellow coat. And she feels like she's the queen in this phenomenal coat in wartime England. And he gets off the train, he sees her, and she's in this bright yellow coat. And the first thing he says to her, "You look like a giant canary." She never, and this is what I'm saying about relative to trauma, she never wore yellow again. Because she didn't want to have that same emotion come up in that hurtful event, even though he was just saying it as a joke.
Yeah.
But you think about this, that happens in our work and our lives, and certain things say something. It's that self-awareness. Do you know, I'm behaving in this way because of this event, or when this person says this thing to me, it brings out this response. Okay, actually, is that response healthy and wholesome to the work environment? Okay, no, it's not. How do I change that?
Right.
No,
go ahead. Sorry.
It's then having that awareness of when you're speaking to people in your teams, are you making them feel included? Are you saying something because maybe their performance yesterday wasn't as expected? And are you saying something that is kind of degrading them or depreciating them in front of the team? Even these little small things that you think might be funny or might be office banter, actually, that stuff, is damaging in very small incremental ways. And it's having that self-awareness of the words that you're coming out of your mouth and the impact that those words are having on those people.
I'm going to play devil's advocate and be a little cynical here, because for the people leader who might be listening to this, who has people leaders beneath them who are leading teams, they might say, listen, we have work to do. There's work to be done. The focus should be on execution of the whatever we're executing. I don't have time to make sure my leader is self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to a leader of people who lead people to make it a priority that their people do have a degree of self-awareness? And how do you even broach that, and make it so that it truly, they understand the value of having those kinds of conversations and having those leaders take on that responsibility of becoming more self-aware, however they choose?
I think there's two elements that come out of it. One, if those leaders of leaders don't think they've got the time for those people to become more self-aware, okay, how much time have they got for the disciplinary hearings? How much time have they got to be sitting with the chief of finance to talk about the attrition levels and the absence levels of the people's mental health that are now no longer in the business? And I think it was anywhere between 12.8 million and 15.3 million work days which were lost due to workplace anxiety, depression and stress in the UK alone in a 12-month period. I can't remember which report I looked at last.
Yeah, wow.
So if you're looking at that as if you think they haven't got time, you're going to be making time for the other stuff. Yeah. And it's then going to be the long-term effect of, okay, these people were really good, but they left. Okay, now we've depleted the employment pool in this area because actually all the good people have left over the course of 10, 15, 20 years. Okay, where do I get these people from?
Right.
Okay, now we've got to go. Now you've got to look at the cost of re-employment, of re-engaging new people, of bringing in talent from other places when actually you had these really good people there, but you just didn't care about them enough to have that conversation with them.
Yep. Really good. Really good. And I think that should have people pause and go, do I really want to preserve my workforce and take care of them? Canada has something called the National Standard for Psychological Health and Safety in the Workplace. It's the first of its kind in the world, and it's set of voluntary guidelines and tools and resources intended to promote mental health and prevent psychological harm in the workplace. Share with us, from your perspective, what does it mean to have a psychologically safe workplace for employees?
Yeah. Regardless, I've got some pillars here from some other thought leaders on this, because I've been doing a lot of reading about this over the last 6 to 8 months. The first thing is about the contribution piece. For me personally, in the journey that I've been on, it's about being able to come to work and actually feel like I'm contributing categorically to my team, to the company, to the business, and actually feel like what I'm doing is making a difference on a substantial level to different elements. Because if I feel like I'm just turning up, I don't know why, it's Charlie in the chocolate factory, and I think it's what Charlie's daddy works at the toothpaste factory, and his job is actually to screw the lids on the tubes of toothpaste. It's like, well, I go to work and I just screw 100 lids of toothpaste, lids on toothpaste tubes, and then I go home. Okay, well, actually, what am I contributing? What difference am I actually making to society as a whole, to the people around them, to me? So that's the first foundation for psychological safety. The initial level. The second part is actually, am I working at my highest possible good? Am I doing what I'm actually designed to be doing? Because for me, this is some of the biggest challenges I had through work. I just felt like I didn't fit in. I didn't feel like the work that I was doing was beneficial. Or making a difference, and I wanted to feel like I was making a difference. So that next stage is understanding, as Sinek says, is about understanding your why. For me, it's that purpose. What was I actually born to do? And that stuff, again, is encoded into you at a genetic level the moment you're born. You can go back to my behaviors between 2, 3, 4 years old, and even my behaviors then were demonstrating what I'm designed to do, which is about challenging people's thinking so they can become more incredible than yesterday. And it's about pushing the envelope for people's approaches and how they're approaching their people. Now, it doesn't matter whether I'm flipping burgers or delivering leadership content, whatever it is, I will still demonstrate that through my work. So, and through my behaviors and through my hobbies and through my pastime. So, one, am I contributing? Two, what am I contributing? Okay, is it who I am actually designed to be? And I use this word very pinpoint, is because a lot of us end up complaining or pointing, this is not what I'm meant to be doing. I'm meant to be doing something else.
Yes.
Not true. Yes. What you're meant to be doing is exactly what you're doing at this very point in time, because something in there is there for you to learn and excel and understand more about yourself. What you're designed to be doing, and that's something totally different.
Right.
So when you have these two elements in play, I'm contributing and I'm doing it at the highest possible level of who I am in whatever job I'm doing, that's when you have psychological safety for me. Because that's from a personal point. The pillars then that sit underneath that, you have the 4 pillars, and I've got them here. 1, you're included. You feel included, an inclusive environment. 2, is safe to learn, so you can actually go and learn new stuff about what you're doing. It's safe to contribute, so you come back to that giving piece. And it's also safe to challenge. So, and I've had huge issues with this where I wasn't able to express myself properly, or people didn't want to hear what I had to say. And that lack of inclusion, that lack of safety to contribute and safety to challenge, actually just came up in aggressive behaviors where people couldn't hear me or couldn't see what I was saying, and that friction just caused relationships to break down and toxicity. So the first part is that contribution and playing at your highest good, and then those 4 pillars that sit underneath it.
And I think, when there's nothing more frustrating than not feeling heard. I think, you could ask anyone that when they are trying to contribute and trying to speak up and they're not being heard, that probably lights things within them. And that's so important. I think about, there was a woman I met recently, and she was telling me how there's a company who they hire you into a role that you interview for. And the first thing they do is they put you through some type of discovery training to determine if this job is aligned with what you really want to do before you even start your job.
Yeah.
So basically, you have like a get out of jail free card if it doesn't feel right. So because they're so committed to having people in the right positions who are fulfilled by the work they're about to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is amazing.
Yes.
You know, for you to be that connected to like, well, yeah, this is the work I want to do, or you know what, maybe not. So I love that. I think, like you just said, is it connected to your purpose? Is it connected to what lights you up, what's important to you?
And I think there's an action or an activity that you bring naturally anyway. That's who you are. Mine is about challenging people. For a high level, yours is about creating a conversation about key subjects, that sort of thing.
Sure.
But there is a medium through which we channel that content as well. And for me, it's coaching and it's leadership development and it's talking to people one-to-one. Now, it's no different to the great artists and the masters. You know, Rembrandt painted in one way, Picasso painted in another. Some people would use sculpture or pencils or whatever. We each have a different modality to actually bring who we are at our best to its maximum fruition. Mm-hmm. And if actually you're doing a job that isn't aligned to that, you can still do you at the highest possible good in that job.
Yeah.
But then use that as the launch pad in order to step up to go where you need to be. Oh, this is me at my best. Okay, this is how I then get there. And because of that, you start creating your own internal psychological safety because you can start to see a roadmap of where you're going to, not just sticking lids on tubes of toothpaste.
Exactly. It's so true. I mean, I'm a graduate and I am a fan of Tony Robbins, and he talks about how you can't have success without fulfillment or fulfillment without success. If you truly want a happy life, you need to have, they go hand in hand. So if you can find the way to be deeply fulfilled in the work you're doing and be successful at it, then that's harmony. But you can have all the money in the world and be unfulfilled, and that's miserable. Or you could be deeply fulfilled and you're not able to make a living and you're struggling. So the two have to come together. And I love what you said about, really, even if you're not in the place that you think you want to be, look around and figure out why you're in that place and how that's going to help catapult you to where you're going to go. I love it. I believe it.
Yeah, and the thing is, they have quite often in organisations they talk about doing a gap analysis. Now, gap analysis, unfortunately, is used in a used in the wrong way. So, for those that've done the gap analysis, you put all your skills, knowledges, and behaviours down, mark them 1 to 10, and then you work out what your gap is between that number and 10. Great.
Right.
And then what they normally tell you to do is, well, go and work out what your biggest gaps are and work on your biggest gaps. That's what they're normally told.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are in your job.
Yeah.
Now, work out where you need certain things to be, great. But actually, if there's things in there that you're really good at and you just end up working on your biggest gaps, you just end up with a whole bunch of average. What you actually need to do is you need to do a final column, which is 1 to 10 out of how exciting you find doing that job. Yeah. Vishen Lakhani from Mind Valley talks about strong strengths and strong weaknesses. Yeah. Now, your strong strengths are things you're good at. Yeah. And then when you do the 1 to 10 excitement scale, that they'll be high on the excitement scale. But your strong weaknesses are things you're good at, but are low on the excitement. Mine used to be Excel. I was really good at Excel at one point. And people thought because I was good at it that I obviously enjoyed it. So they come to, Nathan, I've broken the formulas on this nested formula in this and da-da-da-da. I'd be like, yeah, thanks. I really hated doing it, but people just kept coming to me with these Excel sheets. Right. And when we're in our jobs, if we just do this check of, okay, well, what am I really good at? 1 to 10. Okay, it's a 9, it's a 10. Okay, great. Does it really excite me? Is it an 8, 9, or 10 out of excitement? Yes, it is. Those are the things you need to work on. Because if you take those things that are a 9 and 10 and good to an 11, 12, or 13, someone is more likely to be employing you because you're now a specialist in that thing that you really enjoy doing. And if it's, if you've got something down here that's a 4 out of 10 for capability and it's only a 1 out of 10 for excitement, how long is it actually going to take you to get that 4 to a 5? Because actually you couldn't give 2 hoots about doing that thing.
Yeah, so, I think Yeah, I think that's deeply rooted in us from our childhood days, right? Because you had to do everything. Like your report card had to reflect that you were good at everything, right? So if
Hmm.
you were lower in one, you had to work on that. And it wasn't about taking the A to the A plus or the B to the A. It was about you better get that C to a B. So I think it's ingrained in us to work at, what we're really terrible. But in doing that, we neglect where we're already strong, and then we can't actually amplify that and get it to be, like you said, to become the expert in it, because we're so busy trying to fix our flaws. Like, do we really need to do that?
Yeah, but this is the thing. So if you look at kind of in the health system in the UK, we have GPs. I don't know the same language in the US. We have a GP. It stands for general practitioner, and
Right.
they're the lowest paid doctor in the health system.
Oh,
The
wow.
highest paid doctor are your specialists, thoracic surgeons, your neurosurgeons, because they're specialists in their chosen field. They come in, ain't generalists, and they work their way up, and they've gone to a niche, and because that's what they're good at, they know a lot about it, and they enjoy doing it.
Right.
So they get paid accordingly. And it comes back to that fulfillment and success piece, even that simple equation. This is what I'm good at in my job. This is the level I need these other things to be. Okay, let's work to that. These are the bits I really enjoy doing. Shit, I'm going there and I'm going to do loads of it, and I'm going to be really successful doing it as well.
I love it. Nathan, tell us what you do. What do you do when you're working with companies? What kind of work are you doing, and what do you enjoy about it?
Work that I do primarily is working one-to-one and working in groups. And it's about teaching communications, team building, how to give feedback, coaching skills. And I think those are titles that a lot of training and leadership development people apply to stuff. But the way that I deliver it is I bring that experience of deep understanding, personal life experience, stories and analogies and approaches, which let people know it's real. That they see my vulnerability. I'm honest about it. I talk to people about my bullying. I talk to people about the fact I overdosed when I was 22 because of my struggles with work environments and how I didn't feel like I fitted in. I talk to people about how we communicate with people and how we're talking to people, how we want to be spoken to, but forgetting that other people can't hear us because they're talking to us and how they want to be spoken to. And it's about building all these little connections from a head level and a heart level. So it's the intelligence and the emotional connecting that creates improvement in results. And it's that rewiring of the brain. It's about sharing the new ideas. It's about pushing the buttons and people having those revelatory moments of, now I get it. And I think I shared this with you before, but it always makes me laugh. I was doing communications training with a group, young Polish guy, mid-20s. I'm doing advanced communication skills with him. I'm teaching about different communication styles and stuff. All of a sudden, halfway through the session, he goes, and I'm like, what happened? He goes, I just realized. And I'm like, I'm not going to do the Polish accent, that'd be terrible. He says, I just realized. And I was like, what? And he goes, why my wife left me. And I was just like, I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner. But because of the way that I was explaining it and taking him through each of those steps, he suddenly realized he saw how the communication had broken down in his previous relationship, and actually how he was also very responsible for quite a lot of that happening. So that's not a normal experience in a training room for doing leadership development. The other thing that I'm now doing as well is I'm moving into trauma as well. I'm talking to wounded leaders, and that's kind of getting really interesting. We've gone through this mental health, or going through another mental health crisis. We're lifting up the level on this. As I said earlier, that intensity of proximity. Now, if you're living on your own and you've been in lockdown, the only person you've got to look at is yourself in the mirror. Yeah. And if you're in a relationship, the only people you've got to talk to is your significant others and your children. So if you've got challenges in your relationship, you've got challenges in the way that you're parenting, that stuff is very confronting. It's in your face 24/7 now. And it's about understanding this. But as this tension's going up, we need that tension. It's like sitting, I think Les Brown said, it's like sitting on a drawing pin. If you sit on a drawing pin, you don't go, oh, that's slightly uncomfortable, and stay there for the rest of the day. No, you get up and you pull that drawing pin out your backside.
Yeah.
We need that pain. And it's that pain plus the reflection creates wisdom. So now we've got that tension. Okay, now we need another question set. Now we need to have a different approach. We need to do the internal dialogue. And that internal dialogue is starting to let certain other things kind of rise to the surface. because we haven't got anywhere to go. We don't have the coffee machine to stand by and bitch about so-and-so. We don't have the printer to complain about and kick at work. We don't have all the other office politics. We're all stuck in here. And now we're having to do the work.
So you just said a nugget, which I love. You said pain plus reflection equals wisdom.
Regrettably, I can't say it's mine. I know it's in a book. I think it's Ray Dalio, Principles, up there. But it is so relevant. You know, we think we have the pain, and we go, oh, that's, you know, this is how we tie it up. We say things like, I should have. I should have said this. I should have done that. I should be here. Oh, I should have this job by now. I should be getting this paid this amount of money according to what my dad told me in 1972. So whatever. I should. But rather that, and it's that language of guilt and shame. Should is the most crippling word in the English dictionary.
Yeah.
And instead of actually questioning it and turning around and saying, rather than saying I should be doing this, saying, well, what can I do next time that makes this situation better? What did I learn from this moment that is the most valuable?
Yeah.
So rather than what we do is we make a statement which doesn't create an action for us. It just creates a state. It's a statement that creates a state of being and doesn't enable us to move. So that you go into the same situation again, and all of a sudden you just repeat it again, and you come back, oh, I should have done that, and I knew this because last time I did exactly the same time. Oh, I should have listened to myself before. So it's should. Nothing happens. So we change it to a question. What is it I can learn from this situation that's going to help me to move forward next time, or to improve this, or to make this better, whatever it is? Okay, what's the valuable lesson? Okay, it's this. How can I use that to make it better next time? Okay, boom. Rather than saying, creating that state, we create a new movement internally, and then we can shift ourselves.
I love that. There's a great book by Byron Katie called Loving What Is.
It's the third time in 7 days that someone's mentioned this to me.
I love that book because I am a huge proponent of when things go wrong, I can easily get sucked into the disagreement of the going wrong. And when you disagree, you do nothing. So as Byron Katie teaches, when you resist your reality, you create your own upset. So she teaches us to love, to just love what is and be with what is, right? Because there's great peace in that. And I'm a firm believer that life is always happening for us, not to us. So there's always a lesson. There's always a lesson. As much as it sucks in the moment, when you get that there is a greater lesson for you to gain from that scenario and use it to catapult you forward, it's a game changer in your psyche.
And the faster you can realize that in the moment is the quicker you can then move forward from it. It's the longer that you linger in that situation with that mindset of this is shit, this is the problem, and you hold on to that, it becomes like an anchor. And the analogy I use, it's like driving, but you're looking in the rear view mirror all the time. And then what happens is that rear view mirror becomes the size of the windscreen, and you're so busy looking behind you, you can't see the next thing that you drive into, and bam, oh, now I've got something else to justify that problem that happened to me 15 years ago, because now I can see it in the rear view mirror, and then bam, bam, and just keep doing this.
Yeah.
But it's having that appreciation. And when you understand the language of appreciation, it comes from the Greek to appraise. So it's like a jeweler. It doesn't, a jeweler can look at a ring. He can look at the quality of the ring. He can see the craftsmanship of the diamond, the purity of the metal, great. And he can tell you how much it's worth. Doesn't mean that he likes wearing jewelry.
Yeah.
So in that situation is if you can appraise that situation and see the value in it, doesn't mean you have to like it.
Yeah.
It does mean that you can see the value out of it and grow from it, that you'll then get the valuable lesson from it so you can move forward faster.
Yes. Amen. Nathan, what a great conversation to have with you today. I'm so inspired by it. How can people get in touch with you? What are you up to next? Let us know. Your website is at the bottom of the tip. Simmondscoaching.com.
Yes.
So people know how to reach you, but what are you up to next? Tell us what you're up to.
So right now there's a lot of different things moving because of the COVID, and we're going into a second lockdown here in the UK right now. So I'm pushing the envelope in a few different ways. So right now, every Tuesday at 1 o'clock GMT, I'm doing a live leadership training. So you can find out about that through my LinkedIn profile. Come and find me on LinkedIn. Amazing.
Perfect.
On the website, there's a free 15-day email course that talks about compassion, gratitude, personal development, all those sorts of things. Sign up, it's free, it's there for you. But the next bit that I'm getting really amped up and excited about is going into this trauma and leadership. So what that looks like is taking all the leadership psychology, psychotherapy, personal development, all of the tools that I use to help build leaders. But the next stage is actually going into that darkness underneath, because I want to help leaders take off that glass ceiling that they've created themselves. I want them to take the lid off all of that good stuff that they've been burying deep down inside because of what they think someone else might think of them because of something that happened to them when they were 9 years old. No, and really reform some of this thinking. Because we're playing these records, but the problem is we're stuck in that rut, and we're playing that same tune, and we need someone to come along and nudge the needle to go over. And the challenge with a rut is, well, as another cliche goes, but I love so much, is when you're face down in a rut, it doesn't look any different to a grave. And it means that you've got to roll over and have a look so you can see some daylight and go, hold on a minute, this thing's only 2 inches deep, but I can actually get out and I can go and do something else and kick your own needle over another to rechange your groove. So in the next kind of 8 to 12 weeks, I'm going to be having some more conversations with people to help unwire the imposter syndrome, take apart the fears, and just take the cap off some leaders and just watch them just absolutely fly. So that's what I'm getting really, really amped about at the moment.
Exciting. I think there's far too much ego and facade in the workplace where people just want to look good and they don't want to tell one on themselves and look vulnerable. But man, that is the stuff that good leaders, good leadership is made of, when you can just be that human, that raw person who's constantly looking to develop and just be better. I mean, I have so much respect for the leader that is fearless in going there. And
it's a combination of two elements. One is having the leadership skills and the questioning and the tools and concepts, and then having that as a foundation, but then having that ability to be radically transparent and vulnerable, but to be able to do that in such a way where they can then apply these tools at the same time, so it's not seen as weakness. Oh, they've said this, they're doing this. Oh, I get that because they did that last time. Whereas most leaders go, I'm not saying anything because if I do say anything, that's going to cause our shares to dip. I'll get fired. Someone will take my job. The teams there'll be a revolution, whatever. But actually, it's not like that. That's everything that's happening in our heads because we don't feel equipped to deal with it.
So true. So true. I love the work that you're doing. It's so needed. I think now more than ever, we need more empathetic leadership, and we need to heal, the wounded leaders out there. So I applaud you for all the great work you're doing. Thank you for joining me today on Michelle's Conversations That Matter. And I look forward to continuing to follow you on LinkedIn and connected to all your great work.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Awesome. All right, Nathan, take care.
Ciao.